White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders says President Trump wants Puerto Rico's debt handled in court, not to be eliminated, as he suggested earlier this week.
Right now, the primary focus is to provide relief to Puerto Rico and support in the rebuilding efforts. While we're still dealing with the immediate disaster, it isn't inappropriate to focus on the difficulties that Puerto Rico was dealing with before the storm. There's a process for how to deal with Puerto Rico's debt, and it'll have to go through that process to have a lasting recovery and growth. This was a process that was put in place and set up under Obama, and that has a board of advisors that deals with that debt, and it'll go through that process as we move forward.
Brad Setzer is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. He also served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for International Economic Analysis in the U.S. Treasury, where he worked on Puerto Rico's debt crisis, among other issues. Brad, welcome.
Thank you.
So even before Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, it was a country that was in serious debt. Give us a sense of the dire financial straits that country was in.
Well, Puerto Rico has been in economic decline since 2006. Its economy has shrunk by about 15%. Its population has shrunk by about 10%. And that translated into a budget and financial crisis. Puerto Rico was essentially in a bankruptcy process before Maria, and Maria is only going to make its financial and fiscal position worse.
So the White House is backing away from President Trump's comments that Washington could wipe out Puerto Rico's outstanding debt. What would that mean? And is that even really an option at this particular point?
Well, the president doesn't on his own have the authority to wipe out Puerto Rico's debt. But Puerto Rico already has access to a bankruptcy-style process. And the outcome of that bankruptcy process certainly should be a reduction in the amount Puerto Rico pays in the near term, and likely a significant write-down in the total amount of debt.
And is there a role for Congress? Can Congress do anything to help the financial situation there?
Congress is going to have to do something to help, because even if Puerto Rico doesn't pay a cent on its debt, Puerto Rico's budget isn't going to balance. Puerto Rico isn't collecting tax right now. There is a huge hole in their budget. They're going to need an emergency financial package to cover the short run and help in the long run.
Yeah, when you look at the infrastructure that was just decimated, basically, it seems to be an astronomical figure. Let me ask you about the medical manufacturing sector. Pharmaceutical and medical manufacturing accounted for nearly 3/4 of Puerto Rico's exports last year, and a number of those facilities were wiped out in the storm. So how big of an impact is that going to have on the island's recovery?
It only adds to the challenges. The medical and the pharmaceutical sector is, as you mentioned, one of the most important parts of Puerto Rico's economy. And the decisions that medical and pharmaceutical companies make about whether to fully rebuild in Puerto Rico are going to play a big role in determining Puerto Rico's long-run economic outlook.
Right, and you could imagine that that would just have some kind of circular effect, whereas less jobs available, more Puerto Ricans being forced perhaps to look for employment elsewhere. A lot of daunting challenges ahead. Brad Setzer, thank you so much for stopping by.
My pleasure.